Good day, everyone. I am Allyza Batoy. I'm a teacher one public school teacher at one of the last mile schools here in Iligan City. I finished my undergraduate study at Mindanao State University, Iligan Institute of Technology as a graduate of Bachelor of Elementary Education, major in English. And just last year, I finished my Master of Arts in English Language Teaching at St. Michael's College. So, for this wonderful day, I will be presenting to you my research entitled Efficacy of the Learning Space on the Learner's Writing Proficiency Basis for English Writing Program, together with my advisor, Dr. Edgar R. Slate. So, I personally chose this study because being in this so called new normal type of education, wherein there is a switching that is happening from learners going to school, now their houses serve as their classrooms. From listening to teachers, now their parents are their learning facilitators. So, in this study, we'll find out how these different types of learning spaces affect the writing proficiency among learners. So, for the introduction, the problem, the effect of this new normal type of education on the learner's writing proficiency, its implication, this adjustment from a classroom based instruction turned into a home based instruction really requires attentive assistance to the learners and to the parents as well. For the literature, research shows that learning spaces significantly affect the way humans learn. For the objective, this put us into urgency of guiding properly the needs of the learners even without having things learned inside the classroom. For the time bound, this study was done for the first to second quarter for school year 2020 to 2021. For my research paradigm of this study, the independent variables involve the respondent's learning space at home, that those are the parents' involvement, availability of educational toys at home, and their learners' interest. For the dependent variable, writing proficiency, and for the output would be the English writing program. For the statement of the problem, specifically, it's so to answer the following questions. What is the level of learning space in terms of parents' involvement of the respondents? What is the level of learning space in terms of availability of educational toys at home? What is the level of learning space in terms of learners' interest? What is the level of the respondents' writing proficiency? How do learners' writing proficiency compare as influenced by the learning space at home? And what English writing program can be crafted based on the findings of this study? The research methods include the researcher employed a quantitative method of treating the data for analysis based on the research problem presented in Chapter 1. This study was conducted at Pedro T. Migrino Memorial School, Malinaw, Cabacsanan, Iligan City. This is one of the last mile and multi-grade schools in the division of Iligan. The study employed the 30 grade 4 to 6 learners of PTMMS. The researcher adopted the Home Literacy Environment Questionnaire of Farver, Su, Epe, and Lonigan in 2006, which focuses on the parents' involvement in educating their children. The Home Toy Questionnaire that will be adapted from the NICHD study of early child care, and the writing rubric from 2012, Learn for Your Life Publishing. The statistical treatment of the data are these: mean and standard deviation. These basic statistical tools were used to describe the average location and variation of the mean rating scores of the parents' involvement, percentage scores of the availability of the educational toys at home, parents' mean rating scores for learners' interests, and percentage scores of writing proficiency. Mann-Whitney U test. This tool is more appropriate for a dichotomous independent group of learning space at home in terms of parents' involvement, availability of educational toys at home, and learners' interest. For the findings in problem 1, the overall mean of the respondents' learning space at home in terms of parents' involvement is 3.61, which can be interpreted qualitatively by sometimes involved. The parents tend to be sometimes involved in the supervision of their children's education at home. Problem 2, majority of the respondents, which has a frequency of 28, have 10 or more children's books. Some of them also invest more on music players and toys that children can use to express themselves creatively, like crayons, paint, markers, chalk, play-doh, and craft materials. For the problem 3, in terms of learners' interests, in terms of the respondents' learning space at home, in terms of learners' interest, it has an overall mean of 4.08, which can be qualitatively interpreted as high. The learners tend to be interested in learning at home. For the problem 4, what is the level of the respondent's writing proficiency? So for the level of the learner's writing proficiency, it has a total mean of 72.9, which has a description of average. They have met expectations under paragraphs and punctuation, and having an approaching expectation in terms of organization, spelling, legibility, word choice, sentence structure, and the voice. For the problem 5, how do learners' writing proficiency compare as influenced by the learning space at home? Learners' writing proficiency as influenced by the learning space at home in terms of parents' involvement mostly are in the approaching expectations, depending on having parents who are sometimes too frequently involved and parents who are rarely to occasionally involved. Learners' writing proficiency as influenced by the learning space at home in terms of the availability of educational toys resulted to having relatively high writing proficiency among learners who have adequate to very adequate educational toys at home. Learners' writing proficiency as influenced by the learning space at home in terms of the learner's interest gave us an average writing proficiency among learners who have high to very high and moderate interests. For the problem 6, what English writing program can be crafted based on the findings of the study? The researcher aimed to enhance learners' writing skills through the implementation of this 5-level English writing program. The program presents applicable steps and guides in dealing with the writing needs of the learners. Also, it suggests certain ways in dealings with each of the level. There are also activities that will serve as a basis in facilitating learning among learners. It lets the learners develop, expand, and consolidate their writing proficiency and will eventually bridge their skills in exploring new ways and ideas and expressing themselves through an effective way of writing. For the conclusion, based on the data gathered in this study, it is being emphasized the importance of learning space at home and collaboration in teaching the child. Several factors affect the learning process, and so we must not take for granted all of the necessary things that our learners deserve to learn. Teachers, parents, and even the community must help one another to develop children's education. Education must not stop at this point in time. Believing the principles of sulong educalidad, we must continue finding ways and means to facilitate learning even we are at home during this time of pandemic. For the recommendation to the school administrators that they may conduct seminar workshops and other training programs that can enhance how the teachers teach English writing skills to our learners. For the English teachers, They might provide substantive evidences that like making an English enhancement programs in developing the writing skills of our English learners. To the future researchers, they may widen the scope and delimitation of the study itself and find out the possible strategies needed by the learners for their writing proficiency. And for the references, we have here my references. So for that, I must say thank you for listening.